Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Mars space here. We're doing a kind of a different thing today. We're having another Access class live, and we're joined by the lovely Brianna.
Hello.
And, of course, Corey over here on the couch.
Hi, I'm on the couch today. It's me.
So, yeah, we've got everybody. Unfortunately, I can't do like a triple split screen, which would be pretty cool. I wish. One of the limitations, I can do a half and half split screen, but can't really do a triple split screen. I guess we can put somebody in the picture-in-picture, or you can still see me or Corey. But it's one of the limitations of this particular hardware. So we're just going to be kind of switching back and forth, and whoever's ever talking gets the big picture. So yeah, I'll let Brianna introduce herself and take over, and Corey and I will just kind of be chiming in and talking about pre-production. So everything particularly pertaining to filmmaking. So that includes, well, I'll let Brianna take over and tell you what all that entails. So it's all you.
Thanks, Jay. Hi, I'm Brianna, as Jay said, and welcome to our third Access class video on pre-production for film. And we're just going to be covering a few elements. This is our third Access class. The first two were hosted by both Jay and Corey, and they were giving a little intro to live streaming, which was a lot of fun. And so this one's going to be mainly about different elements of like planning any sort of video shoot. And this is sort of a process that I think is overlooked a little bit, and it's really important when it comes to filmmaking, is to have a game plan going into it. But filmmakers really vary, and some of them really like to plan everything out to a T and know every detail before going into production, whereas others prefer to sort of fly by the seat of their pants and figure it out as they go. I personally would recommend doing some sort of planning beforehand. I think that there's a little stigma about, like some people think that if you overly plan going into a production, that it could sort of like stifle your creativity in a way, because then you're like narrowly focused in on what your vision is going to be, and you won't be able to make creative decisions in the moment. But I don't necessarily think this is true. I think that planning a lot and doing your research is a good thing, because when it comes down to it and you're on set, if you do have all of that planning completed, it's only going to benefit you, and you can really like go into it and just throw that away if you want to and be like, oh, in the moment there's under these conditions, like I want to make this creative decision. Like you can still be open to changing your game plan, but like having that is really important, because it can help eliminate a lot of like problems that you might run into. Just having that as like a solid backup. So yeah, I was curious. I'm someone who probably like over plans, I think. I'm curious for you too. Corey's more of like a music guy, so his pre-production looks a little differently, but I'm curious like what your level of planning is going into production.
Oh yeah. So like, well, with music it's kind of different, right? Like, cause like what is the production phase can often look really different. So like when like projects can range from something that's like entirely done within a computer and there's never any like on set thing at all, there's any equivalent of being on set. But like for example, like if we're gonna do something that's more traditional, like say if I'm playing in a band and I'm gonna like go into the studio and record something, so this is kind of like the analog to like a kind of a traditional like film set. I think there's a lot of like there's a whole bunch of pre-planning, like it's really all about being efficient and like getting done what you need to get done when you're like filming, when you're shooting, when you're in the studio, like, and time often is money, or at least like time is time, and it's limited, like it's really just about like everyone knowing what their role is before we get there, and knowing what the plan is and what you're going to do, and so like within those parameters, leaving room for creativity is important, but just like everyone being on the same page and like understanding what the goal is always important. Yeah.
Thanks, Corey.
Oh, you're welcome.
Sorry, I was I'm trying to participate in the conversation, but I'm also switching and running the stream at the same time.
Yeah, that's a lot. We have a lot of putting a lot on Jay today.
That's all right. This is what I love to do. So And of course, even for, we talk about pre-production and right now for me, a lot of that has been, in this kind of environment, where you're live streaming, your pre-production is, talking to your clients before you stream, getting any notes, getting any ideas of the space you're going to be working in, getting, kind of familiarizing yourself with, what exactly they want and, what's going to happen and figure out what equipment you need. And of course it's the same in a film scenario, but a lot of the live production stuff, of course, is like, oh, somebody comes to you a week before, and, you don't really have time to plan before the event. So your pre-production is sort of, getting all your stuff together, getting to the location, setting up all your equipment, and then you run the event, and then a lot of times you're done. So there's like that pre-production phase, and there's not much, maybe you have to upload it to YouTube or something, but of course, in that pre-production time, you're doing a lot of, just to think of it, I guess, in a different kind of way, you're doing a lot more of the, making sure all the technical parts of it are together. And a lot of that's for, also on a film set. Like, you need to know what equipment you're going to need. You're going to need a gimbal. You're going to need a track system. You're going to need, you're going to need like extra sound equipment. Like, what are you trying to do? So like, doing your pre-production, doing your storyboarding, doing your shot list, all that stuff is going to help you figure out what you need when you get to that point where you're pointing your camera, at your actor or in whatever the scene is. You know exactly what it is you need, when you need it, and where, so you're not making anybody else wait or anything like that. So, I'm a big supporter of pre-production, and it's a huge part, if not, I feel like it's probably the most important part of your whole production, is getting that plan down so that you're ready to go the moment you set foot on your set. Like Brianna was saying, you can't, some people feel like, oh, you can do too much pre-production, but I feel like, it's kind of like writing a novel. It's like you're writing this novel and you write 300 pages, and then the publisher's like, you need to cut 100 of these pages. It's going to happen regardless. Like, you're going to have to cut back on certain things. So you just have to kind of accept that. So going into your pre-production and doing as much as you want, if you really are like me and love to do that pre-production stuff, just be ready to have to cut stuff. I feel like that's a pretty important part of the that pre-production process. Is not everything's going to make it to the final cut. Whether it's you doing the cutting or someone else, something's going to be cut out, and you just have to be prepared for that. So I don't know if that answered your question. I kind of rambled for a second.
No, that essay example is actually really good, because cutting back on things is always better than trying to like add things in the same way that like when you're over planning, it's fine if you throw out some of those ideas, but
right.
It's much better than being under prepared and then trying to like,
you're like, oh no, we totally missed the whole scene. Like, how did we forget that? Like, it was in the script. We didn't like storyboard. Like, what happened? Or it was like, we missed a crucial like part for the character that like made like, it lost the momentum of the film, or something like that.
Yeah.
Some of the pacing, it threw the pacing off, or like, you check all that stuff before you start, and then I don't think there's nothing worse than like telling your actor, oh, we missed stuff, we got to go back.
Going for pickups, yeah.
Yeah, and like that's such a pain for everybody.
Totally.
So, whether it is you have to rent equipment again, or like go rent the space again, or like whatever it is, it's always a pain.
Yeah. So everyone also has like different ways of going about their planning, like different orders that they do it in. It's not like a linear process. Oh, you have to do it in this way. For me personally, I start out, no matter what video project I'm doing, if it's like a commercial, music video, documentary, like narrative, short film, regardless of what it is, I typically start out by making like a mood board. And I wanted to show a quick video about that before we get into it. And this is from our Access class series. So if you haven't checked those out, they're up on our YouTube. You can access it through our website as well. So this one talks, it's called a lookbook in this one. You can call it a lookbook, mood board. There's a couple different names for it, but ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
A lookbook is an important part of the pre-production process. For me personally, it's something that I start working on immediately after reading a script for the first time or after finishing one of the first drafts of a script of my own. It's a great way to keep all of your team members on the same page with your creative vision. A lookbook is a board where you put different references that are related to the film that you're trying to create, and these can be stills from other films, clips from other films. It doesn't even have to be film related. It can be pieces of artwork that have inspired you, or basically any sort of medium that you think will help keep your team on the same page with what's in your head. The great thing about mood boards is that you can get as specific as you want to. You can have a general one that you can give to your entire cast and crew. You can get very specific just for like the production designer, just for the cinematographer, just for the sound designer. You also don't have to use any sort of software application to do it either. It can literally be a board that you have in your office or wherever you work, and you can pin different reference images to that too if you're more of a tactile type person. Creating a lookbook or mood board is one of the most important parts of the pre-production process, just to make sure everyone on your creative team understands what your vision is and is doing the best they can to make that a reality.
Cool. And you can come back to us. Awesome. Are we unmuted?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, cool. So yeah, that's just a little introduction to what mood boards are. They can take so many different forms, and they're helpful for a lot of different reasons. We can wait,
back?
not yet,
Not yet?
actually.
Okay. Let me know when.
Hold on, that was weird. Okay, it's kind of a weird view. I don't know why this is happening, but we can just go for it, I guess.
All right, there you go.
Oh, cool. Cool. So these are a couple of functions of mood boards. The first one is to draw inspiration from pre-existing art, which I think is really important because art is imitation. And so when you're coming up with ideas of what you want your video to look like, it's really good to get inspiration from other sources. So this doesn't necessarily mean it has to be from other films. You can really get your inspiration from anywhere, like whether that be literature, nature, music, architecture, painting, sculptures, you know. So you can really draw from a bunch of different mediums and sources.
What would you say yours is? What's your favorite?
My favorite?
Yeah.
Well, I think that the easiest is film. Other
Okay.
films,
Right,
because
'cause
it's
they're
like the same form of
art
art.
form.
But I think a lot of it's actually literature. When it
Okay.
comes to the story, at least, like
Oh, of course, yeah.
characters. I think a lot of books have really influenced like characters that I write about. But yeah, visually, I also get inspired by nature, and like as you're walking around, just seeing things around you that could be like. Whether it's like a cool looking hallway or, you know, any landscape that sort of like makes you think of a certain scene or situation. Just like being able to be inspired by everything around you, I think is important. And another aspect of mood boards is that it helps you identify the tone of what you're doing.
Right.
Because as you're, you know, gathering these images or whatever they are, they all have a certain mood or feeling to them, and it can kind of determine the style of your film. So for me, like these two things are kind of more focused on your creative process and the realization of your own project and what it's going to look like. Same as organizing it visually. So as was mentioned in that video, you can make like mood boards for all the different aspects of the film. So you can have like a mood board that's dedicated to lighting, and it's inspired all the different lighting examples, or one that's just for color, one that's for wardrobe, stuff like that. And I think that that's also helpful because it really makes you think about the details. So if you make a whole board of inspiration for wardrobe, it'll make you actually visualize what the costumes are going to look like and put that out there, and give you personally like a better sense of what your vision is. Right. And then another major element about a mood board is that it conveys what's in your head to other people on your creative crew. It's a way to like express it in a visual way that can be like interpreted rather than like explaining it verbally to someone. It's just much easier to understand the tone and any like other references.
Especially when you can show people, you're
Yeah.
not just referencing, oh, this movie I saw, this French film that, there's some obscure thing that nobody's ever seen, but I really like the lighting style.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
And it's like, well, give me a screenshot of it or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Putting it in a visual way. And even just like a few photos can evoke such a specific feeling that can capture the essence of your film. So here's just some examples. These are in the video too, but these are kind of like general mood boards that more just capture kind of an aesthetic. They use like elements like text and fonts as well as images. We got like color palettes and stuff going on. And then there's the mood boards that are more specific, where like this one's just focused on the color of a film. So this short film called Love Games is inspired by Neon Demon. That color palette has a lot of neon colors, very artificial and kind of dark. And then there's one about lighting. And this is also one of those things where like you can overly plan and like add layers of meaning to your projects. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that the more you think about your vision and the story and the layers of meaning to it, just the richer it will be. So this one kind of connects. There's text on this, and it just kind of talks about the purpose of the lighting, like why it's like dark, so it brings attention to the characters, because this film's kind of like a character study. And then like the way that they're lit, they have a dark side of their face, and a lot of the characters have secrets. So you can kind of like add some symbolism in there. Same with like the composition, because in the story it's like a romance, so it's like two people start out apart, so try to go for those shots where they're separated by something, and then at the end, framing them closer together. And these are things that are good to think about beforehand, because you can add so many visual specifics and details that you probably won't be able to come up with just like on the fly. And then here's some like different ways that you can make mood boards. There's a bunch of free online just websites and stuff that you can use. One of them is Canva. We've got.
I love Canva.
Yes.
Big
really?
shout out to Canva. Yeah.
Nice. What do you use it for?
Oh, all sorts of stuff. Everything. Graphic design, like any kind of graphic design. They just have. It's so instead of dropping into Photoshop like so many templates and things to give you all sorts of ideas. It's great for Instagram stuff. All these that first like starting title screen. That we saw at the start of the stream was made in Canva.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
Oh, because they can add the animation.
You can add animations. Yeah, you can export stuff. So there's a lot that you can do with it. I definitely am a big supporter of Canva.
Cool.
It's definitely worth it, especially even for the pro version, because there's so many assets that you can use, and like it seems almost endless. No more like searching Google for clip art. You can just go right there and find it.
Very true.
So.
And like the assets are good too.
Yeah, they're good
the things
quality,
that my limited use of it is like it's. Yeah.
Want to switch back to us really quick?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I totally agree. And that one's free. Do you guys pay for do you have a premium Canva?
I do personally.
Okay.
And I use it for work stuff, and I think that it's definitely worth the the little bit of, and it's not that expensive. I don't even know.
Really?
What the
Oh,
price
nice.
is. I don't think it's really not that bad for what you get, and I use it all the time. It sure beats going into Photoshop and doing a whole.
Totally.
The whole thing in Photoshop. So
sounds like it's worth it. There's a lot of the clip art that has the watermark. So they have so many, but a lot of them are premium subscription. So maybe I should look into that then.
Definitely, yeah. Like I said, like all the graphics I create for Mars, I've used Canva for and all the posters, anything like that.
Cool.
So it's great, if you're looking for inspiration for stuff like that, and even your movie posters too. You can do it in Canva.
Yeah, totally. Okay, we can go back to the.
Okay.
Yeah, I have Canva pulled up actually. I just looked up like mood boards, and there's so much to work with, and all of them are very customizable. Oh, I have no internet. Wait, that makes a lot of sense. I'm not connected to the internet. Oh no, wait, I should connect to the internet, because the next thing I was gonna talk about is Shot Deck.
Okay.
I don't know why I didn't think about that before, but this is a really good resource. It's like this online library. Have you guys heard of it before? Oh, it's so cool. It's this online library of, I mean, it says it up here. There's 150,000 different stills from like 1,500 movies. Oh, I'm so blind. Do you want to come over and help me as I'm explaining what it is?
I don't know if I just didn't want to like shout it out on.
Okay, you're good.
Although, we do have Wi-Fi in this building, but we would like for you to come and visit to find out the password. If
You're right.
I feel like we shouldn't stream it out.
Secret.
We're gonna come here tomorrow, and there's gonna be just like a 24 people like sitting outside the building.
Right, using our Wi-Fi
Totally.
network.
Oh, it says connection failed. Wait, did it fail?
We have the funny network stuff going on over here.
It's kicking me off. Wait, click show password.
There you go. Now it's going
I
out
did
on the
spell it
screen.
wrong.
Screenshot
wrong,
that.
or
And
right?
we'll
How do you
see
get
you.
back
We'll
to
see
it?
you
Oh, it's
outside.
up here. Okay.
Oh, I guess we shared it with.
Oh wait, we did share.
Yeah. It's all right. It's all right.
I can still talk about Shot Deck really quickly though, while you guys figure that out.
We'll show Corey. He can
Hi.
entertain.
It's me. Can I ask a question actually?
Yeah.
While we're having a mild disruption.
Totally.
So like I saw you like talking about all those different kind of formats for the way that you would make a mood board. Do you ever do audio mood boards?
Yes, definitely. But usually it's in the form of like a playlist.
Sure, yeah.
Where it's like these songs specifically inspire me, and I would like play that playlist when I'm in the zone. You know, anywhere really, like going on walks, just like listening to music, visualizing. It definitely helps boost creativity, I think.
Cool.
And sets a certain tone as well.
But you use like music specifically in that regard.
Yeah.
Did that work?
Oh, I think so. Yay, thank you.
Cool.
I was just thinking about how like, you know, we were talking about like sound design and how it relates to like things, and like how like iconic sometimes like the sound of a film can be, and like
okay.
you know, like as a person who tends to notice the sound in movies like, more than probably some people, like I would be like, I can imagine just like gathering examples of Foley I liked or something like that, you know. But that's like a certain level of detail that like you know, like you might, you know, we were talking earlier about how not everyone has to do every step of the whole process, and like maybe your inspiration isn't that nitty gritty stuff, and like maybe you want to leave that for someone else or something, you know?
Right. I get inspired by sounds that come up naturally too, like if it's raining or if there's like some machine, you know, I'm like, oh, if we distorted that sound, that would be so cool. And so like stuff like that. But I never like search up Foley, but I think that a lot of times filmmakers do overlook the sound portion of it, especially in like the pre-production phase. I think there's a lot of emphasis on the visuals, and that sound is a really cool aspect. It's super important.
Yeah. You want to go back to what you're showing here?
Yeah, so Shot Deck, it's actually in its like beta phase right now, so you can get like 2 weeks free of it. I don't know how expensive it is because I have it like through my school, so I'm not exactly sure. But 2 weeks trial version is still really handy because you can download all of these video stills, and the aspect of it that's so nice is the filter options for your search, because you can really get specific here. Like there's so many shots that they have, and you can filter it by like the color, whether it's interior, exterior, even like stuff like the lighting type.
You could do a fun trivia game with this.
We
What's the
really
screenshot
could,
from?
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Or like the age of the people, how many people are in the shot. So you can get really specific with inspiration. So yeah, I was wondering, do you guys have any like specific ideas that I should try to search for of like an image or like different moods or genres, or like
I'm kind of really liking some of these ones that are just on the base page.
I know, you can just scroll.
I'm looking at that like orange, the orange one at the very top. I'm like, that like, looks like Blade Runner.
Yeah, Blade Runner, the new one.
It is.
Yeah, I just watched that the other day too.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
It's some cool color grading in that film.
Yeah, that film has a real color graded vibe. Like it's all, they really use color nicely.
Yeah, let's find
very cool.
A warm female. It's really, so if you're like looking for something specifically, this there's so many results. It's pretty awesome.
Wow. Are these all like pulled from existing films? Is that
Yeah. So there are like 1,500 films total, and they add to it all the time.
Cool.
So yeah, you should check it out. It's pretty cool. I also have the other two. So there's Canva, and then there's the two other ones. These are also free. I haven't played around with them too much, but let's see.
Oh, they have some like pre-made.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. Pre-production plans. So.
Oh, wow. Yeah, look at that.
There's like so much you can
put
do
in
with
locations
these.
And everything. Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
You can do storyboards, which is pretty awesome. Murals is a really good one if you are like working with the crew remotely, because you can, let's see. So here's just like a pre-production one. You can invite a bunch of people to it and then all collaborate on it, which is cool. You can add like little sticky notes, images, and it's just like a really cool way to get a bunch of people collaborating on one visual document.
Oh.
But yes, you can come back to us really quickly.
Okay.
So that's on mood boards, which is not an essential step, but I think that creatively it's important to like set the tone and get you familiar with what your vision is.
That wouldn't be like the first thing my brain goes to. Honestly.
Really?
But of course, I mean,
yeah.
I didn't really go to school. You know, I kind of, you know, I haven't had professional like classes before in film.
Yeah.
So I'd never really learned that technique. I guess that I've kind of been, I've taken like, intro to film production, but like, never really had like a structure for that. And I hadn't really heard of those. I mean, I've heard of like, of course, planning out what your sort of, your tone or the look of your film is.
How do you plan that though?
I feel like I honestly my first initial step is the story like writing the script. Of course, there's steps before getting to actually writing the script.
Yeah.
There's like the idea, and then you kind of expand that idea to your plot points, and then you expand that, or take a formula of like your arc, the classic, same process of like starting a novel. Like you have, your story arc, you have the whatever you use, the hero's journey, whatever it might be, to kind of structure, the beginning, middle, and end, and then you break the beginning, middle, and end down, and then you break those down, and then you break those down, and so I've always found that that's where I start with films. I almost don't, I don't think about the. I see it almost as if I guess it's different for different artists, but it's almost like if I was there in the moment with those people, in that scenario, like just standing kind of watching this happen. So it's almost like I don't see it in that sort of visual way. I think that's why like music is kind of a big thing for me in that early stage of like you were talking about, like what inspires you, that vision kind of the film that you want to make. And I almost see those actions, but they're not, they don't look like films in my head. It's more of like it's like if we were sitting in this room and I was sitting here and I was to write a script about this moment in time, it would be like looking through my own eyes and seeing it.
Interesting.
So
you're experiencing it like it's happening instead of
right. Because of course, when you're writing a script, and I mean, we haven't gotten to the script point, but you're writing in the present tense, like it is happening. You know, as you're writing it, like they did this, and this happened, and this happened, and it's happening in that moment. You don't really write. Some screenwriters, of course, you can run as long as you understand what's going on, but like. To be in that moment, I feel like can be the most powerful way to write a screenplay. Is you're seeing it and you're listening to it, and you're reading the dialogue as it's happening. So it's not like it's not in a past tense. It's not in a they will do this or they will do that. It is they are doing this in this very moment. So, but. Yeah, what would be the next step after we did a mood board?
Yeah, so after the mood board, which of course, like as you're bringing up, everyone has a different way of planning. Yeah, it's totally fluid. But another big one is storyboarding. So I have another little video, another access class video on that we can watch really quick before we talk about it.
Sure.
cool.
Storyboarding is another important part of the pre-production process. What storyboarding is just a quick and easy way to get specific shots that you want for the story that you're trying to tell down on a piece of paper or in a digital format to share with your cinematographer and to talk about how to frame everything, how to tell the story the best you can visually. One app that I use is called Storyboarder, and it makes it very quick and easy to sort of frame up shots. You can insert elements into the frame and move them around however you see fit, and then lock them into a frame to export. There are some filmmakers who don't really do any sort of storyboarding at all, and they create everything on the fly, and then there are other filmmakers who have every single camera movement, shot, detail planned out ahead of time. So it's just kind of up to you and how you utilize the tool, but it's something that I highly recommend attempting to do just in the pre-production phase to at least get an idea of how you want to block actors, position them within the frame, and it's a good way at the very least to talk to your cinematographer on different camera movements and sort of stylistically how you want the film to be shot.
Oh, back to me. Nice. Awesome. So storyboarding is a really important part of making a film. It's like the first time that you're planning out what it's going to look like. It's almost like making a little comic strip roadmap of like what the camera is going to be seeing, you know, as you're going throughout the progression of the film. And for me, I do this before making a shot list. Everyone's different, so it's one of those things. Like, it's not like a 1, 2, 3 step type of thing.
So the script would come. So the script is something you have. I guess like.
Yeah, I didn't think of that as pre-production actually, but I guess it is. I just thought like you already have the script and now you're in pre-production phase.
Okay.
But you were thinking like script writing is pre-production.
Right. Yeah, I've always pictured it as like that part, like you. That's kind of why I guess I was confused. We almost have to do a screenwriting live stream.
Yeah, I think that's a whole other.
Now that I think about it,
you can talk for so long about
those
separately.
So interesting.
But
Okay. I thought maybe you would cover that. I was like,
you're like, at what point do you write the script?
I guess start shooting.
Yeah.
You know what it's gonna look like. You just let them loose. It's all improv.
Yep. So screenwriting comes before all this.
Yes, exactly.
So this is like that's pre-production, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, this is under like you already have your story and you're like planning how you're gonna transform the script into a film, and so it's in between the two. Yeah.
I was trying to piece together a puzzle that I didn't have all the pieces to.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. No. I guess that will be something that we could maybe add to our
to talk about in the future.
Our agenda of classes.
Screenwriting's tricky.
Put it on my list of stream topics.
Yeah. That would be really cool. Mm-hmm. I'd love to do that. That would be really neat.
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll let you continue now that I understand that we already have our script.
Yes,
I
should have
said that. We're ready
to
go with our script, and we're making this film now. Somebody else wrote it for us. We don't have to worry about that part.
Yeah.
So we're good.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Continue.
Cool.
I'm sorry.
Yes. Let's go to the PowerPoint. So, again, like with storyboarding, there's gonna be a bunch of different ways to do it. There's a bunch of free online websites and applications you can use. The one that was featured in that video is called Storyboarder, and that's free. And there's also a lot of like digital drawing tools that you can just like use Illustrator or, whatever really. And it doesn't have to be like a really detailed thing. It can be like stick figures. It's totally up to you, and it depends on if you're like showing this to other people or if it's just kind of for yourself to map it out. Because what I usually do is I'm pretty old school. I just get a piece of paper, draw out like squares, and then just like very roughly like block out each shot and like the framing and just like the actions throughout. But
just enough to tell yourself where's the camera gonna go.
Yeah,
that's the big thing. Even doing top down sometimes is a really useful thing.
Right,
I don't know if you've tried
overheads.
that technique.
Yeah.
Everything, you kind of just set up your little, you draw your little person, a circle, then you draw another person, then you put a camera, and you're like, okay, this is the angle of the camera that I'm going to get from a top-down perspective.
Yes.
So you can say, okay, the camera's going to sit like right here behind this person, you know, and then the sidewalk is here and the house is here. So like they're...
I was like literally just about to ask, like, what do you do when, like, in all these shots where the camera moves and like and the framing changes so much? But it's like you could like I'm picturing like almost like a like football plays like top down with like arrows.
It
like,
is. Yeah, those are called overheads.
Okay, I'm getting ahead of you then here.
No. I wasn't planning on really talking about those, but I will pull it up. You don't have to go to me quite yet, because I'll find it. But that's a really fun part of it, and it helps, especially like you're saying, if there's a lot of camera movement. It also is a good way to map out your lighting setups, because, and of course, this is like under the assumption that you know the space that you're working in, so you kind of map out like where the space is, where the actors will be, how they'll move, and that this also helps like knowing which person's shoulder to be over or where they're going to be walking through the space, like the blocking.
It's a little more technical than
the
storyboarding
yeah.
I've definitely found that useful with some students where it's like they're they're kind of iffy about their creative skills. They're like, I don't want to draw anything. It's like, well, okay, well at least like let's do an overhead and like plan out where you want to put stuff. That way that way you know. So it's a good approach for someone who's not quite maybe not confident with their drawing skills, because that comes up a lot. I'm like, I don't know how to draw. I can't do a storyboard. It's like, okay, well, let's just put your, show us where you put your camera then and where your actors are going to go. So.
Exactly. And there's another level of, besides the technicality, it's kind of like when you make a storyboard, those characters could be anywhere. You can make each shot look like whatever. But when you get into the actual space, there's going to be factors like lighting and physical distance and stuff like that will affect things. So another thing is, like, when you make storyboards, it's not going to come out to be the exact same, Right. That's more of a rough idea. And then overheads are more of a good like blueprint to have that can help you. So yeah, we can share my screen. This is some little overheads I just like drew out on a piece of paper. So I did like a little you have a little image for camera. You got this arrow, purple arrows are for like camera movement, and then the characters are the different shapes.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, so these are two people on a bed. And then so there's three, this is a 3-cam setup. And then the blue arrows are just like the character sort of moving. And stuff like this could go alongside a shot list too. I think it's really helpful when you have your overhead to also be like creating the shot list based on that. I think if you are in like a confined space with actors, it's when it's like really important to figure stuff like this out. If it's a little more freeform, it might not be as necessary, but this is more of like a technical type shoot. So yeah, here are just some ideas of course, they can look very like simplistic and it's
definitely
just, like,
very useful. Very useful. I find them to be very useful.
These are really clear too. Like,
right.
As a person who has no experience on a set, I'm pretty sure I know exactly what is going to happen.
Yeah, this person goes and gets more wine, I guess, in the kitchen.
Super clear though, and well, like even like the camera movement, like camera 3, like seems like it backs up a little bit, like.
It does. It does.
Like I can figure that out.
Nice.
Nice and clear.
I'm glad.
I like color coding. That's a big thing.
I think that's all right. There's one more. Oh, this is where shit goes down.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they knock over the TV. Things get crazy. But yeah, those again not essential, but it's kind of fun planning things out like that, and it definitely will help you when you're in the production phase and actually on set. If you do have all this planned out, it eliminates a lot of problems that can come up, because I've been on quite a few sets where there's sort of like disagreements about whether we're breaking the 180 degree, line.
All these rules.
Or if we're, all the rules. Yeah, exactly.
What's that rule? I don't know that rule.
So basically, you want to explain?
No,
Sorry,
you go for it. You go for it.
Basically, if I took this camera, this one that's on you here, and I wanted to do like a, it's kind of weird, and it's one of those rules that like if you know it, it's kind of a natural thing that you don't break. But they say so. It's hard for you guys to see kind of what I'm talking about. But say if you had, I don't know if you could find a graphic of it, maybe it might help. Like essentially, I shouldn't move this camera more than 180 degrees in one direction. So the idea is if I swing it around you, like like if you're on a pendulum or whatever, and I you get a rope tied to you, and I take it around. I shouldn't, if I get behind you, either way, I shouldn't move it like any further than that, because if I do, the viewer is gonna see. Essentially, it flips. It's hard to describe, but it's like one of those.
Was there like a psychological thing, like almost?
It's more like
I'm
a.
very curious about this.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I think a good visualization of it might help.
Okay, we can.
Do you have one? Let's see.
We can go to my thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, whoops.
There it is. Yeah.
So basically, what we're kind of looking at here is so the camera, like, if it's there, you don't want it to. I guess the green is like if you flip the camera over to the other side,
Over to
they're
the red
gonna
side.
swap places.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, like, it's. I've never run into a situation where I broke this rule before.
Oh, look at you.
I think you really have to. I don't know. It hasn't come up where like my brain doesn't think that way. Like if you have enough. See, the thing is all you have to do is break it up with you can break it up with a cut in or an insert or something. It's just you don't want to do it right away.
Yeah.
Like otherwise it's a jump cut and the characters flip places.
Yeah, like what?
Okay, I see. I see. So you're talking
So
about
you're
not like
disoriented.
actually like a panning shot, but like a cut.
A cut. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Okay.
It'd be interesting
Makes
to
perfect
try to
sense.
demo this live. I think that would be fun.
I
How
can-
awkward it looks.
From an audio perspective, I can immediately see a problem, which is if you're trying to pan any of that dialogue even slightly, then all of a sudden they're going to be reversed. And
That's very true.
you
I didn't
know,
even think of
like,
that.
So then, like, which is, like, I don't know how often dialogue gets panned like that. Like, I'm not a post-film person, so I have no experience with that, but, like, I should pay more attention.
Right.
So,
watch
like,
more
Listen
movies
with
with headphones on.
headphones. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So like you can see where the kind of the camera that's sort of in silhouette there at the very bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can move it on this green arrow any way you want.
Right, yeah.
But as soon as you break that, you've flipped around. Like if you took the say if you took the camera and it was like up in this the top part of the green arrow, and then you all of a sudden you took it and you moved it to the bottom part of the red arrow, you would flip your characters would be like on the same. It is really difficult to visualize without actually like demoing it.
No, this visual is super helpful.
Okay.
Yeah. I've been on a set recently where we did that exact thing. It was an over the shoulder on the left side of the person, then we flipped over to the other side. And when you cut between the two, it's like very clear because when you cut between two people talking, one person looks to the right, the other person looks to the left, and it's like the illusion of them having eye contact. Whereas if they're both looking to the right, it's like who are they looking at? You know what I mean?
Okay, all right.
If we see
Oh,
Corey
it's
here,
really interesting.
yeah, like you're
It
looking.
would never occur to me to think about that, but that makes perfect sense.
But when you watch it, you'd be like, this is awkward. You might not know exactly why you're
Who
like.
am I talking to right now?
Right.
Like, where am I in relation to the two of you?
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like
Totally.
this for the viewers at home.
So because we're not moving the cameras, like I'm over here and Brianna's over there, so it's like, and you guys are over here. So like, since the cameras aren't moving, it's not, we don't have that problem. But it would be fun to like get I guess we could demo it and just like we could record it and then show it.
Yeah.
Would be kind of cool to do.
I'm gonna add that to the list of things.
Yeah, that would be a neat like rules of filmmaking might be a fun one.
Exactly.
I'm
not
sorry
to
to interrupt you earlier, but that was really interesting, and thanks for teaching me
Of
about that.
course. Yeah. If you have any questions.
This is why I'm here, because I'm the most ignorant of the three of us on this table, so.
It is a hard rule to describe without showing.
Yeah.
I think. It's one of those few that it's just kind of just like jump cuts. Like they're not. It's hard to kind of describe when you can't really see what is happening. But yeah.
Exactly. Cool. We can come back. I
come
just
back
have
to it?
like very few like storyboard examples here. This one's from Get Out, so
Yeah.
it's in Chris Goes Into the Sunken Place. And you're talking about like camera movements earlier and trying to convey that, because the tricky thing about storyboards is that it's a still image.
Right.
But you can use arrows. So in this one, for example, they have an arrow here showing that he falls into the frame, from screen left. And then they even have these little arrows here, I think, that kind of signifies a slow pull out of the camera.
Yeah. Those are the.
And then they even have like arrows here for the camera. So this one up here is showing like the camera starts behind him and it loops around going in front of him like this, which is kind of cool as he's falling. Looks kind of
Professional storyboards are always really good to look at.
Yeah,
You
definitely.
See how they do it in the industry.
Like what
what
like how
techniques
they
use.
convey it and what they feel the need to convey.
Exactly what's important about it. Totally. And then another one. So this one's from Kung Fu Panda. Love that movie. Best movie. But we were talking a little bit about animation earlier, and how their storyboards are kind of like, it's interesting because they don't have like the clear difference between pre-production and production, where it's like that the storyboard will necessarily look very different from the final product. And I think a lot of storyboards from animated films are almost exactly what it comes out ends up looking like, which is kind of cool. But this is interesting because it's almost like it's showing a frame by frame, you know, which I don't usually see, because we got to see like 3 shots here of Poe in different poses in the same shot. So
it's kind of interesting. I know that if you watch some of the old like some of the like Pixar films or something, like their production methods, I think some studios will make like essentially the film out of the storyboards. I forget what they're called. They're like it's previs is the name, is what it's called. So they take the storyboards and they time it. And a lot of times with animation, they have like they'll start the voice acting.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah.
I've totally seen that. Okay.
So it's a really cool technique. You probably noticed it before.
Interesting.
Animation workflow is really interesting because they tend to do dialogue first.
So they're kind of already establishing the pacing.
Because you need the dialogue to lip sync to.
Yeah, to
it's
animate
much
to,
easier to animate to the voices than for the animators to try to lip sync to the characters.
Yeah.
You know, so.
But they're often not. They're often just cutting their dialogue separately. I was listening to.
That'd be hard to do.
It sounds terrible to me.
Very
I
isolated.
was listening to an interview of Tawny Newsome, if you guys know who she is, a really awesome comedian. She voices the main character on the current Star Trek animated series called Lower Decks, which is better than I thought it was going to be. But as I digress, she was talking about her experience like doing the dialogue for that thing. And it's all everyone shows up and like on their own day and just reads their lines and leaves. Like, and they don't, like if they're lucky, like 2 of the actors, if they have like a scene where there's like a bunch of intense back and forth, they might get the two voice actors in the same studio to have some banter. But it's just a lot of like reading your lines and leaving and letting the animators deal with it kind of a thing.
Wow.
That's so tricky when you think about how much dialogue like overlaps in films, you know? Not having that other person to go off of would be very tricky.
And it really makes you appreciate how well the editing is, like to make it all like, cut up and feel and also the talent to just like sound like they're having a conversation. But you know how like sometimes when you listen to cartoons and the characters just kind of sound like they're shouting at each other and not actually talking to each other? I think this is probably partially why.
Yeah.
Anyways,
cool.
Digression.
Interesting.
On Storyboard.
Cool.
Should we go back there?
Yeah, that's all I was going to say about storyboards. I don't know if you guys have anything else to add about it or.
Well.
No, I don't think so personally.
Okay.
Well, okay. Wait, you know what? I have one thing to add about it.
Yes.
This reminds me of like the idea of doing like we're getting to essentially like the concept of doing like demo songs. You know, it's typical like a part of like in like a real serious like big music production thing. Like if you're like a band making like a record for like a major label, you know, and it's like a big studio film production, the music equivalent of that. You know, like you're going to make recordings of all of your songs before you go to record your songs. You're going to make demos. So you might do the full production of your thing and then go do it again. You know, so that's like instead of like a storyboard, like you just like literally have a rough version of the thing.
Wow.
Is the only difference like what you're recording it on then?
Often.
Like, do you just record it on something else for the demo? Or?
There's no like technological difference. It's really just about like it's more about like like from a business perspective, it's like how much are you willing to spend? You know, like so like big studio productions get really expensive because they go over many days, and like if you're gonna hire outside musicians, this is where the pre-production becomes really important. But so like a lot of musicians just like record themselves for their demos, But like you might go into a studio to cut demos too, like but like not a fancy one, or you just might do cut corners and like. But it's like it's just weird with audio because you can't. You can write sheet music, but you can't like freeze a frame of it. Or you can't just like you can't communicate the idea can't really be communicated very well separately from
Right. 'Cause
just
it's not
experiencing the idea
visual.
itself.
Exactly.
You know, it's just so much simpler just to play someone the thing you want them to hear instead of explaining it to them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And how do the demos differ from the final product? if
Sometimes
at
they
all?
don't at all. Sometimes people fall in love with their demos and they release them.
That becomes
You know,
the final.
it happens a lot. I'm trying to think of a good, famous example of that, but yeah, sometimes they differ greatly and sometimes they don't. You know, and that it really kind of depends on the type of project it is and like the resources available to the person doing it. You know, like if I want to like write an album that's just like me and my guitar or something like that, which I don't plan on doing. But if I were to do that, I could record it at home and I could, you know, and like I could release that even.
Yeah.
Or I could just like re-record those songs somewhere with better equipment and a nicer space than mine, you know, with a better engineer. But like if I want to write for like orchestra, I have to demo that somehow. Like, you know, I mean, like, we're getting into like this is a completely different workflow, but like, you know, like I don't have, I can't play all the instruments in an orchestra at once, and so if I want an idea of how it's going to sound before I hire the musicians to play it, I need some way to demo that, and so like virtual instruments is like the.
Oh, okay, so that's the difference. Like your storyboard or pre-production might be having those electronic instruments, or
Yeah, you
using
basically,
Logic
like,
or something, and then when you're actually going to record it is. So that in that case, the difference would just be between the sound of the instruments, right? Or are there other differences that come up? Like when you go from demo to final product, do you ever like change anything?
Yeah,
Like,
I
you're
mean,
like, oh, actually,
totally.
this doesn't work this way or something.
Yeah, I think. I mean, again, it also like depends on the kind of project and like what all stages people want to go through, you know. But like, you might like again, if we're talking about one of these big major label type projects, like you might make these demos and then you take them to a producer, and the producer sits and like works with you to develop those demos into something that's like more. That either meets your vision better or like meets the vision that you and the label agree on or whatever, you know, helps you develop the goal. They're kind of like the director of the project. And so it's interesting, like most of the time the artist is also like the producer, but not always. And especially in those large productions, they're not.
It's interesting because there's film producers too, which is like
Completely
a whole
different role
than the
completely
director.
different. Yeah. So okay. All right. Can we talk about this real quick? This is like
Totally.
it's so confusing. The word producer and how it gets used. What does that word mean? Okay. So what does it mean in film? Can you guys start with that real quick?
It's very interesting. I was even
Yeah.
talking to a few people who are creative producers, and they don't even know what their major is. So that kind of puts it in perspective. Of like, I mean, the stereotype is like, oh, they deal with the money. I think.
Right. I think that they're kind of your connection between like the studio and the they handle like the paperwork, I guess. Like I feel like
They're like the business manager of the film,
Exactly.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's sort of how I see it. You know, they handle whatever, if there's a location you want to shoot at and you need permission, they'll deal with that.
Yeah.
You know, they'll get, photo release stuff. They'll get, they'll handle all the business side of it so that the rest of the creative team doesn't have to worry about that sort of stuff. They are like the business savvy part of it's like, oh, we can't do this shot because we don't have the money to rent this equipment, so it's like budgeting, things like that. I mean, that's how I've sort of if I was to hire a producer, I would hope that they could handle that stuff that I wouldn't want to deal with.
Totally.
So
Yeah.
I don't know,
That sums it up really well, I think.
Yeah. So that's my understanding. So in the music world, we use that term, and it means two things, and neither of those things are that thing. So the producer is definitely not the person who deals with the money. The producer is usually someone you hire. Well, somebody hires, usually like a label or like pays them in the way. I mean, the financial structure of the music industry is changing so much that it's not even worth it for me to talk about labels anymore. It doesn't make any sense. But like, so the producer is kind of like the equivalent of, so there's two different, we'll talk about the old meaning and we'll talk about the new meaning and why so the old meaning is like the producer used to be kind of like the director. Like they're the one like overseeing the creative vision. Like
Right.
their job is to liaison with the band and like the engineers to make sure that the like session is like works to help their creative vision basically. Could be anything, like some producers are really heavy-handed and contribute to the compositions, or like arranging. I think I believe like George Martin or whatever like arranged a bunch of the Beatles tracks. You know, like he's like their producer, engineer guy. You know. Anyways, but then so at some point, this I wish I could accurately explain why this changed, but at some point it changed, and kind of like in the advent of like electronic music, when people started to be able to like do all the steps themselves, and they like all of a sudden didn't need to hire musicians to play the parts or engineers to engineer them. People started to be able to have complete creative control of their own projects, and so they started producing their own tracks.
Right.
And so now we use that term producer to be someone who makes electronic music, like just period. Which kind of makes sense because like you sort of like you do all those steps, and you know, if I've replaced all the musicians with a computer and replaced the engineer with me. Yeah. So I don't know.
Anyway, so just interprets it in the literal sense of you're producing the music.
Yeah, totally. So it's so three very different ways that same word gets used in three very related industries.
Yeah,
it's kind of obnoxious.
I feel like you could still have a music producer on your film set, you know, producing the music, you know.
Yeah,
there's all sorts of producers too.
Right.
So many names.
Well, your like composer might be a producer. You know, you might call them a composer on your film set or like for your film thing, but like their job title might be music producer. It's just weird. It's funny how every industry has their own jargon, and sometimes it overlaps and sometimes it doesn't.
We're all producers. We're all producing art of some kind.
I like that definition. It's nice and broad.
Yeah. Very cool.
So there's just one more element that I wanted to cover really quickly, and that is shot lists.
All right.
So I think for me personally, there's like three main things about a shot list that are important, and one is it really helps you and make sure that you get the coverage that you need, because it's like a list of shots that are needed for this film, and it's really easy in the moment if you're on set and you don't have a shot list or you don't refer to your shot list as much, you could accidentally miss something, and then when it comes into to be post-production, you're like, oh shoot, like we can't cut from this to this, we're missing this key angle or something like that. Like we broke the 180 rule and we don't have an insert to cut to. And also continuity, just making sure that production design and wardrobe and all those elements are going to be, continuous going through it. And then also screen direction, which we kind of touched on with like left to right, switching angles, which directions people should be going. So here's an example this is a student film shot list. So they also vary a lot in like what information is important to include. So there's not like certain things. I mean, there's a few important ones, like you gotta have your scene and your shot. This one has two, so you got shot and then shot as. So that's just the first one is like chronologically in the film what is shown. Like the establishing shot is 1A, you cut to something that's 1B, 1C, and so on. But then, of course, when you start making your shot list, you're going to find out what order works best to actually shoot these in, and that's dependent on a certain location, certain lighting, or like wardrobe, things like that, where it's like, okay, we'll get all of these shots, in a row, and then we'll move on to these shots, even though it's not chronologically in order. Also, that might be based on, like, if you're doing, like, a steady cam or something, if you have a whole rig set up and you're going between that and being on a tripod, maybe doing all the ones with that rig first and then moving to tripod, that'll save some time and you're not going back and forth a bunch. So come up with some sort of order, and that's why there's two different sets of lettering there. And then you got your interior, exterior, so that's just going to be, like, whether it's inside or outside. The framing is a good one, so that's just, is this going to be a wide shot, medium close-up, extreme close-up, medium shot? And you don't have to stick to these either. You can kind of adjust, of course, like with framing based on, like, when you get there. Camera angle, you've got the movement of the camera, the subject, a little description, which is really helpful because then when you reference your shot list, like, what shot it is immediately by reading the description. And then some notes, like here we got Tenet hospital bed. That's just like a reference to the film Tenet. That's kind of inspiration for that shot.
Shot lists are definitely one of my favorite tools.
They are?
I feel like, yeah. I don't know why.
Why is that?
I think because it's like the initial step after writing a screenplay, I feel like for me, at least in the process, is like going to the shot list is next, because then I don't have to worry about trying to draw things out. I can just be like, I can picture it. I can say, okay, this is going to be a close-up of the character taking a sip of their coffee in the cafe, and I want the camera to slowly pan, so I can like picture it and just like just kind of verbalize it, I guess, in like right onto paper, and like that can connect with a certain piece of the it kind of correlates straight to your script. Like you can say, okay, this chunk of description, like maybe the description is Lucy sits in the cafe sipping on her cappuccino, and that little sentence right there is that shot. Like that's your description for that shot, and you're like, okay, what is this shot? I'm visualizing this shot. Like this action in the script is this close up of her in the cafe, and like going from that, it's kind of almost like breaking apart your script into the shot list, and then typically I'll go to the storyboard after. So working that through to from a text format up to visual, like in a visual cue kind of. We have all text, your script, your shot list, and then you can take your shot list and make your storyboard out of that shot list, where you already have these descriptions of these shots, and all you have to do is draw them out.
Yeah. The cool thing about your script, your shot list, your storyboard, your overheads is they're all like different ways to visualize the same thing. Exactly. And so there are like these puzzle pieces that are just different ways to express. And what you were talking about with the script, I did the same thing in one of my classes in film school, where you actually have your shot list, and they're all labeled like 1A, 1B, and you go to the script and you actually mark it up and draw little lines of like, okay, from this line to this line, this is shot 1A.
Yep. Oh, that's my favorite part, because that means that you're done with your script and you're like, okay, now I'm moving on. Like I've got the skeleton here. I'm gonna add some meat to its bones. You're like, you gotta rearrange it and just take those pieces out, and you're like, all right, now I'm gonna show this, and you can connect all the dots to your final.
Very satisfying.
Exactly. So.
Totally. I think that's all I had on the PowerPoint. I just have other pre-production elements to consider. We talked about overheads, which is good. Yeah. There's like beat sheets, which are also optional, just another way to think. That's more like script related.
Right.
Instead of going through the different beats of your film.
It's kind of a thing for like, you can, I guess, I haven't really used them too much, but I guess it's more for like pacing and timing.
It is, yeah.
In the same way that a beat is like, okay, this is like for, you have a page of your script, typically it's like a page is a minute or so. That's the typical conversion. But you can kind of break it apart even more, saying, this scene is going to be like, if you really want to get like into the nitty gritty of it, it's like, I want this shot to be 10 seconds of this, and like, I don't know how.
So is that how the form that it takes is like a kind of a spreadsheet?
Do you have any
like
examples
of a beat sheet?
Yeah, I'm like,
no.
I'm so interested.
I do, but I wouldn't be able to pull them up as quickly as we need them. But
that's cool.
It is kind of like music, and then it's like beat is kind of like a unit of measurement in a way. And so like in your example, Lucy sitting down, that would be one beat. She picks up her coffee. That's a second beat,
Yeah.
And in beat sheets too, it's kind of like, in my particular like class in film school, we had to analyze each beat and like, what is this beat doing? What's the purpose of it? You can get really like analytical and go deep into it. But
I guess it's not so much a timing thing as it is like, I get like, it's timing, but it's pacing. It's like it's not like a fixed.
Yeah,
time.
I'm looking at. I've got some examples pulled up just like
did?
randomly. I wish I can't share them from my iPad here, but
you want me to search?
Oh, it's cool. I'm like, so it really is just like, it just seems like a more detailed like taking a shot list and going like the next level of zoom in and being like, okay, in this shot, this thing happens, and then this thing happens, and then this thing happens, and this kind of is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay.
I feel like they're kind of like...
Or maybe it's not per shot, but maybe it's more per scene or something like that.
I don't have a lot of experience with beat sheets. I haven't had to ever go that deep into something. But I guess if you have a really complex scene with a lot of moving parts, you know, you're having that beat by beat, kind of like what's happening in every second of this, you know, of the motion or whatever.
Okay.
You
Do you
know?
want to check out one of my documents from my
Sure.
film school? Okay, so I had to make like a beat by beat analysis. So we had to answer all these questions
Oh, wow.
first of like, what does each character want? What happened immediately before this scene? This is my directing class. What's the conflict for each character, internal, external? So those are just questions. But here we've got the actual script, and we break it up into like dramatic blocks.
Mm-hmm.
And then the beats here, I think that each beat is when the character has like a different intention or a different action in a way. Action is kind of loose here.
Sure.
So like we're supposed to use active words of, okay, Bella in this, you know, section is trying to torment. Like that's her action in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And then it kind of changes when she has her next line because that's to imply or to hint.
Interesting.
So we had to, use these active verbs to distract, to ignore, which is an interesting way to sort of like interpret your script. And it's kind of like thinking beyond the dialogue and more of like the character and like with everything they say or everything they do, like what their intention is behind it in a way. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that's not quite what I
Which
what I was thinking about. Like,
it's different
as
for
far as
sure.
beats
There's
go.
so many different ways to do it. This is a
Right.
beat by beat analysis, so I think it's different than a beat sheet.
Yeah, there's so many different approaches to this creative process of like getting that script to the point where where it's ready to be filmed. That translation from concept to visual. There's a lot of steps, and like a lot of people do it different ways.
Yeah.
And it's good to have a plan, whatever that plan is. There are systems for that some really tried and true tactics of in the filmmaking industry that but of course that doesn't mean that you have to stick by one particular. If something different works for you, then there's a lot of ways to approach it.
Right. Exactly. That's
just like with music.
Totally.
That's the main takeaway. Definitely, I think the most important is the shot list. At least
I
having
think so too.
a shot list.
If I were to pick one, like if you could only do one, if you only had time for one, just do your shot list.
Exactly.
Like at least get and maybe do some little doodles on there if something's like really complicated, or you need to kind of visualize use the next would probably be the that top down, the like overhead.
Yes. Yeah, for blocking
Right.
and camera movement.
Because a storyboard can take a lot of time.
Yeah.
Like, it's a big commitment to
It's
do
true.
a full storyboard.
A storyboard and a mood board are more on the creative side of it, I think. They're
Right.
not as essential to the technical production.
Exactly.
They're helpful when you're...
Like if you're working with your cinematographer or you're working with your, who's ever doing the editing, you're like, hey, I like this color, can you grade it kind of like this? Or can you, of course, the color part, of course, lighting you have to kind of do, on set. But if you have, your lighting crew, you're like, hey, I really like these sort of lighting setups, or definitely useful for people to see like what you're really wanting to get that vision across. But
Yeah, I hope that was helpful.
Yeah,
We were
very
able
cool.
to cover a
Did you have any other
handful.
questions, Corey?
Gosh, no, I've learned a lot. That was really
Yay!
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a cool conversation. And it was fun kind of translating it to music, seeing the differences. And I think there's more similarities than I thought there was because very different senses.
Totally. Yeah. Me and Jay spent a lot of time talking about like how it's just like funny how different it is with like visual stuff. You can like see it all at once, and in music you can't listen to like all this, two songs at once or whatever.
Just a collage.
But you can also you can take all of your recordings and line them up visually.
Right.
Whereas like you kind of like can't really. I mean, you can sort of do that in like a video timeline, but it's not really like how that works.
Right.
So like I was looking at that like a shot list is kind of reminds me of like these old school documents. Like before we had computers for editing music, everything's recorded on tape, and you can't just look at it and see what you've recorded. You have to
Right.
play it back and listen. So
Yeah.
so like that's tedious and takes time. So you'd keep a list, and you'd have to remember, you know, like what was recorded onto what track on what tape and all that stuff. So there'd be detailed documents that look a lot like that.
Wow.
But like computer technology has just changed, and now it's
That's
just
so
like
true.
you can just
bypass
look at the
it.
project
Right.
and see all your assets visually organized. You know, so it's kind of like it's like a kind of gradually smoothing over of all those processes, right? You know, that's an interesting thing that seems to keep happening everywhere. That like the blurring of pre and post and all that stuff, and like it's just
Yeah.
I find it really interesting.
Certain processes get faster with technology.
Totally. Yep.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I definitely feel like there's a lot of tech out there for storyboarding in particular. I feel like it's
Yes.
definitely been there. You know, there are programs like we kind of talked about that can really help speed up that process. Like I said, it's probably out of most of those that you mentioned, it's probably the most time consuming. I feel like you could, you know, really get, but you could really get, you know, a solid feel for what your film is going to be, you know. But if you have a really detailed shot list, you know, it's still workable. Like you can definitely, I feel like I could confidently say that if you're, you know, if you're cinematographer, like if you worked with them and you've gone over the shot list and they know what you want and they, you know, it's pretty obvious that, you know, this kind of shot here and that and whatever, the shot list is your first, you know, that's why I was kind of saying, like, that's the first thing I go to after you know, finishing a script is the shot list, because like I know that I'm going to use that like for the whole thing.
Definitely.
Like, it's always going to be useful.
Yeah.
A storyboard, you know, maybe, you know, doing small little frames on the side of my shot list, even, you know, like you said, like drawing a square and then just kind of like getting a little basic stick figures in there just to kind of visualize it a little bit if you need that little extra push there. But yeah, that's super cool. What are you going to be talking about next week? Brianna will be back with us next week, and
next week we'll focus more on production.
okay.
So that's also a pretty broad topic. So it's kind of, you know, open to ideas. I think definitely like equipment and lighting and audio is a big one whenever you're on production. Maybe you could talk a little bit about audio. On location audio is a little tricky.
I've been learning how little I know about that, but I have things I can say.
Yeah,
for sure.
Nice.
You know, like microphones are microphones, but
yes,
the equipment is like the demands of a location are super different than the demands of like a recording studio.
Oh
which
my
is
gosh.
I think a lot about how so much of this planning is because of like how shoots happen on uncontrolled environments.
Very true.
You know, like and because you're capturing so many different kinds of sensory information at once too. You know, like if it doesn't matter how it sounds on set, you can like you can do all kinds of different things than if you have to carry. If it didn't matter how it looked on set, it could sound amazing, and that's a recording studio.
Yeah.
You know, like anyways, like location sound is like largely about compromising and like getting it done. Seems to be.
Yeah.
So, I'm learning a lot, and I'll talk about it.
Yeah, exterior shoots are so hard. Like visually for like lighting, that's really difficult, and like weather conditions, and also audio is like one of the hardest things when you're shooting outside. All of a sudden you realize like how many freaking sounds are around, like how many cars and, you know, birds, dogs. There's just so much going on, and controlling that's tricky. So yeah, I think a lot of our workshop next week will probably focus on some potential problems you can run into and like how to be flexible and adapt and in different environments and when different problems arise. After you've got all your prep, even no matter how much prep work you do in the pre-production phase, you're gonna run into issues. So.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
For sure. Well,
Totally.
do you have anything else you want to cover?
No, I don't think so. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
See y'all
This is
later.
Corey. All right. Yep. We'll be back at the same time on next Thursday at 5.
Yep.
So join us then, and we'll be talking about some more, getting into production. So, yep. Cool. All right. We'll catch you all later.
Bye.